Hello and welcome back to another video here, guys. This is going to be something a little bit special here. I'm actually going to be doing photography strictly with using a smartphone, the camera on it, of course. And so my phone of choice here is the Samsung Galaxy S10. It's pretty old by now, it's at least a couple years old, but still going strong. And honestly, my favorite feature of the phone itself is using the camera. It's really just unlocked my photography, mobile photography in particular, with just the various different angles of wide angle to zooming in, and the picture quality throughout is pretty well sharp as well. So I'm really looking forward to trying this out here. Something a little bit different, I think, that is a little bit of an afterthought with most photographers that have like mirrorless or DSLR cameras such as this, is that they really don't use the phone quite as much. And personally for me, my philosophy with it is that I use it a lot with pre-scouting and just check out locations, or maybe trying out testing compositions that I may photograph later on with my actual camera here. So it's mainly meant for that kind of stuff, but today I'm really going to be strictly doing it just with using the phone and trying to make the best possible images I can get from it, of course, too. So I'm here at this local park. It's here in about mid-spring right now. We're right in the middle of it, which is prime time for lots of different ephemeral and other kind of wildflowers that come up in spring. And may try out some landscapes, even though the lighting's pretty overcast right now. It's pretty just low light for being midday, and so it's not really the most pleasant kind of light that makes a nice dynamic range or contrast in an image. That is if I were to take a landscape at least. But I may try out some of those as well. But I'm really going to I think the thing that's the phone photos that really work best are stuff that's much more close up in a macro perspective. And so that's what I'm going to really trying, I think, with this kind of visit here. But I'm open to any possibilities, or of course trying out some abstracts or something that might be cool, like a top-down view of some kind of something on the ground floor maybe, for example. So we're going to try out some different techniques and exposures and see how it really works out. So most smartphones nowadays actually have what's considered a pro mode that's built into the default camera app. I know there is also dedicated camera apps that have those pro modes, as they call them, and those basically allow you to dial in the exposure and settings much like you would on a traditional camera. So that means obviously like everything with the exposure triangle, such as ISO, aperture, and shutter speed. And so that's what I'm going to be using here. With most of my phone shots, I really don't use that, honestly, so this is going to be quite a first for me, really. Really just taking the time to compose the image and everything, and not just be so overly reliant on using the auto exposure settings in this phone here. So that's one thing I'll be trying out really in particular here, is slowing down and really just thinking about how to make a well-exposed image as well. And like I said, these cameras really are powerful nowadays, powerful tools, and I feel like a lot of the images I make on them sometimes are some of my favorite images overall. I think I'm going to try it out here, so let's go ahead and take a walk, and then later on I'll also go back into my home office and I'll get to show you guys how I edit the images that I take onto an app called Snapseed, which is free to download on Android here, and it allows you fully featured filters and different kinds of adjustment sliders, both global and more finer tune adjustments, and you can also just fully edit your images however you may see fit, which that's the app of my choice that I use. It's fully featured and it works really well with editing your phone images here. And so I'm going to show you kind of like my steps, I guess, with that, and how I personally would edit my images and stuff that you can really do to elevate your phone photography. And then so we'll pretty much go from there. But let's go ahead and get started here and take a little short walk here around the park and see really kind of images we can get for the visit here. All right, so there's various spring wildflowers out right now, of course, with it being spring here. I'm seeing, namely, it looks like there's some mayapple leaves, which I took some images of just a little bit ago. I'm also seeing lots of Virginia bluebells, which are still sticking around right now. Tons of spring beauties out right now. One of my favorite plants, actually, and I only find it really at this park in particular here in my area, is also called Jacob's Ladder, which is, I see a cluster, a bunch of them over here off to the side of the trail. And then tons of wild geraniums, which there's some really large ones that I'm focusing on photographing here with my phone. But as I was going along the trail here, a little funny thing is that I found one of these little magnifying glasses like what the kids use, something like, I guess in summer camp or whatever. I just found it off to the side of the trail. It was very wet because it rained this morning and had some dirt on it, but I wiped it off, and I've actually been using it as a little bit of like a kind of like hypnotic look to the images as I hold up to the the phone lens. And it's really cool to see that kind of technique. It almost reminds me of something like Evident, like those Lens Baby macro toolkits and those lenses that they create this more blurred whirlwind effect centered around the focal point in the central in the frame. And so I really like the technique with that. It's pretty neat to kind of try this out here and just hold it up to the lens and just see what the results are. And so took a couple of images as such with these geraniums off the side here. Just like I said, some nice and big ones, but I hold this up to there and then just point it, you know, so that way it fills the frame, and just take the image, of course. Something really cool. That's a little bit of a surprise is finding this, and just, you know, being creative and thinking outside the box. I feel like it's really what's helping kind of, I guess, take these kind of shots really. And so I'm really looking forward to editing them and further, you know, just improving them in, you know, incremental ways really with post-processing on the apps like I mentioned here. So yeah, I think they turn out pretty well. I'm gonna keep going here and try out some other wildflower shots, and we'll see how it really goes. But so far I've been really enjoying it, and like I said, just taking just the variety of plant life that's out here at this local park, and seeing really what I can come up with a phone, you know, versus using my camera, which I'm already quite missing. But I am enjoying this very much so as well. So I'll take a few more shots here, and we'll keep going. Alright, so I'm seeing tons of plant life here. The flora here is just, you know, it's very biodiverse, and there's lots of beautiful native here to North America wildflowers. So I'm also seeing lots of yellow and white violets, purple violets even. I saw one singular jack in the pulpit, which is pretty cool. It's a nice little pitcher plant that's, you know, very vertically driven. Beautiful green on there. And then also lots of yellow trout lilies, wild blue phlox in particular. So that was pretty cool to see those. Those are here in pretty good numbers. And yeah, just lots of different things here. Lots of different ideas and, you know, just species to photograph. And I'm doing it in different ways too. I'm doing lots of top-down views, like my classic, I guess, macro shots are usually taken with. But I'm also doing stuff where I'm incorporating the landscape as well. So I'm using a strong foreground element, such as the wildflowers themselves, and I'm basically just having it composed so that way they are, you know, pretty much dead center in the frame, right front and center. And then all the way in the background is out of focus, but it shows the surrounding landscape and all the greenery here in the lower canopy of the woodland. So those are a lot of fun to take. It's a little tricky though, just trying to, you know, adjust my exposures and just get everything balanced, all the while keeping the phone, you know, just held steadily enough at least with the shutter speed I'm using, and making sure, of course, not to overexpose in any such way. I'm finding in some shots where I have spring beauties in the background, even though they're out of focus, it's still overexposing them, and naturally our eyes are drawn to the most brightest parts of the image, and that just means it's going to be just a distraction that, you know, I either have to recompose my image for, or simply just clone it out in post-production, which maybe what I end up doing, just because I don't want to pick the flowers, obviously, and alter the landscape in that kind of way. That's just not my philosophy with that. Alright, so this is really cool here at this particular park, is that this is one of the few places in my area that I've seen the Osage orange tree tunnels, which is basically like a natural fence row. As you can see, it just stretches way across here, and then the footpath just meanders along it. So I'm trying out something that's, you know, not the wildflowers right now at the moment, but something that's much more of just a traditional landscape. I'm using vertical to accentuate, of course, the vertical composition of the trees, right? And then I'm just having it so that the footpath off to the left side of the frame just kind of leads your eye all the way to the back half, stretch all the way across there. And so it worked out pretty well. And something neat I actually realized in Pro mode is that it can show also, it highlights in green basically what's overexposed and what's in focus, which is a cool little neat feature they see from using the phone screen, of course. And really the phone screen in a way acts the same way as live view mode would on a traditional camera. So it's pretty neat to have that feature on there as well. So that just kind of helps, you know, with my eyes and just see really what's fine-tuned in focus, and with the exposure, of course, too. Alright, so it was quite enjoyable, I think. So I took a variety of different shots here, primarily just wildflowers and some just kind of like landscape type shots. Obviously doing some kind of wildlife is probably going to be next to near impossible without, you know, degrading the quality of the image, of course, from zooming in with your phone here. But everything else turned out pretty well, I think. And so with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and go back home and edit the images, and I'll walk you through my process with that. So, alright, so here I am in Snapseed, my photo editor application of choice. on my phone here, and I'm going to be showing you just a couple of images, probably about 3 or 4 I'm guessing, just examples of what I took here today. I'm not going to really show you go through the whole process because it's more or less the same with each image edit. But basically my philosophy with image editing is that the more time I spend on it, the more overprocessed it gets. So therefore I want to choose to, spend no more than probably 2 or 3 minutes on each edit, unless if it's something more time intensive like cloning and stamping or some kind of like composite or focus stacking or even high dynamic range photography. So with that being said, I'm going to just take a few more, I'm just going to take basically a few minutes here just to show you kind of like some editing, some basic adjustments and some light, just kind of touch up that I do on these kind of phone images here. So this first image here is of the wild geranium. This is the example photo of the looking through the little magnifying glass. And as you can see, it really severely underexposed it, which is no big deal because I'm just going to open up basically a exposure. So basically I'm just going to open up the tune image feature, and as you can see down here it shows you different options. You got brightness, contrast, saturation, ambiance, highlights, shadows, warmth. And so I'm just going to choose the brightness. As you can see it's going to bring up the brightness but at the expense of the haze and obviously the lower contrast scene. So therefore I'm going to actually bump out and try something different here. The reason why I chose this image in particular is just simply because of the fact that it's going to be a little bit trickier to edit. So I'm going to show you kind of like my philosophy with editing it overall. So I'm going to bump up that brightness a little bit higher, and then I'm going to be really severely upping the contrast to about plus 72 here. As you can see, it brings more detail and more life to it. Here's actually 82, which I like a little bit better. And you can see auto adjust kind of just doesn't do much for me here, so I'm going to bring that right back up again, about 83, and that makes it pretty nice. And then from here I'm going to just try something like a vignette. So basically when I edit images, I'm not going to say I don't have a preset idea in mind, but I do just kind of go in and whatever I'm feeling at that moment is what I come up with. Now some image edits are actually premeditated, and I do really have like I guess an outcome with it and how I want to process the image. As you can see with the full minus 100 outer brightness, that makes a really harsh vignette. So just showing basically the feature-rich power, I guess, of this Snapseed engine. So I'm going to actually put it probably about 60, I'll put about 48. So something like this I think works pretty well. And then from here, I'm going to adjust my white balance a little bit. There's auto adjust, which I showed you is not really my preferred for that. So I'm going to try it again here. Temperature. See, I can basically just adjust it. So it's like any other photo editor application out there. It works pretty well for what it's worth. I'm going to up that brightness once again. And it's looking pretty well. You can zoom in here and really see the finer details with it as well. It looks pretty nice, but I'm going to add a little bit of sharpness to it because I feel like that really just kind of help. It's pretty tough on these phone screens, especially since I was exclusively doing manual focus with these images. That's just the luck of the draw with doing phone photography, at least with the pro mode in regards to that. So I think that's good enough. Just keeping the subject centrally in frame, I feel like that's just the best way to go about this kind of image. And so I'm going to go ahead and save a copy of the image. So this next image is actually, it's pretty cool. It's a trio of toadshade, and they all gradually get larger in size as they go from left to right. And then at the end of it, and you can see even in the background, there's some yellow trout lily. So I thought it was a really cool composition. It's kind of something fun and creative to try out here. As you can see, it's pretty brightly exposed, but I'm actually going to up it just a little bit more because I do like the high key look of it. Then some saturation, just going to bring out the greens a little bit more. As you can see, I'm not doing anything drastic like this, obviously. I'm just basically just upping and lowering different adjustments on the image there. Contrast, I'm going to bring that forth a little bit more. As you can see, it's about +6, +8. That's all I'm really concerned with doing for these kind of images here. And then from here, I don't really feel the need to crop the image. I'm pretty much just set with how I have it. Now, there is a couple of different preset filters, if you will, like grainy film, retro lux, grunge, vintage, drama, that you can set. Here's drama, for example. And so you can have filter strength, so you can really have it just full in or just, you know, more subdued, I guess, something with a less contrast to it. You can even adjust the perspective, as you can see. And this can be kind of fun. It even pre-fills, as you can see in the black areas, the blank spaces that come from, you know, changing the perspective. You can even do something really dramatic like that, like a Dutch tilt or something, but that's not necessary for this image. At least not what I'm going for, at least. So I think from here, this actually looks pretty good. There's even a reason, or yeah, so I think that's pretty good. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this image as well. As you can see, like I said, I'm just basically doing very small edits, nothing drastic. I could even pull up these phone images upon exporting to my computer and edit them that way if that's how I prefer it. But you know, the fun of phone photography is really just, you know, on the fly and just have it be mobile, fully just, you know, dependent, I guess, on the singular device here. And editing it that way, I feel like makes the most sense for this format. Okay, so the next image here is of wild blue phlox. This is a pretty cool plant that comes out in the lower canopy of woodlands, typically in mid to late spring here. And this is a shot where I really tried to incorporate more of the landscape here. Even though the phlox is in the foreground, it shows the out of focus background, and it shows basically the surrounding area and the woodland around it. So, and some felled tree trunks and everything too. So this time I did auto adjustment, and I actually like how it looks a lot better than how it did before. It kind of just bumps down the exposure a little bit and lessens the contrast, which I feel like for this case works out pretty well because I did overexpose it a little bit. You could say it's intentional, but it's just kind of like with the sun filtering through the clouds. That's just simply how it came out to be. And from here, I might as well show you the details enhancer, which is basically a structure tool. As you can see, it dehazes, and it's kind of like a foggy mist to the perspective image here. So I'm basically going to go with something, just add a little bit of punch to the image, a little bit more clarity to it, and I feel like that worked out pretty well. Then from here, like I said, I'm not really interested in cropping it. You can even do double exposures, which can be really fun on Snapseed here, but I'm just going to basically show you the shadow areas. I feel like that's something I want to really kind of bring out a little bit more. You could even say that tree trunk in the background off to the left side, the left-hand corner, could be a distraction, but if you bump down that shadows a lot more, it brings it much more into the composition. All right, so I think this is pretty good for what I'm going for here. It's a little bit maybe desaturated, so I'm going to actually up that a little bit more. And that could have been something on my part when, you know, upon taking the image, but yeah, that looks a lot better. So I'm going to keep it at that and save that image. All right, I'm going to show you one more image here, and then we'll pretty much call it quits for the video here. But I hope you're enjoying this process. It's not really a full-on tutorial per se, but it is just kind of like showing you, I guess, how I may edit images, for example, images I took earlier in the day, and just seeing basically just different ways, I guess, you can edit the images themselves. All right, so this next one here is actually the last image I took for the day, and that was of these little these leaves, basically. Once again, as a foreground element in the frame, and then having the landscape in the background. This one's gonna be a little bit of a tough one to show you, at least with editing, but I'm gonna try it out here with adjusting the horizon line first and foremost, because it is pretty off-centered here. All right, so something a little bit more intensive in the editing process. I really have to, you know, pay attention to what I'm doing and make sure it's all fine-tuned and everything, but I think I almost have it to my liking here. All right, something like that I think is pretty good. It's not perfect, but it does get the point across at least. Now, as you can see with doing the singular frame with the phone, it really did overexpose the obviously the sky. It's just a washed out kind of blank white just mess, I guess. You know, clearly if there's a histogram with this image, it'd be overexposed. So using the curves function, I'm gonna just bring down the sky, the highlights that is, ever so slightly, and see, I can easily just bring it down to that, but it just makes everything underexposed, and that's definitely not what I'm going for. I'm gonna keep it something more like that. Like I said, it's not perfect technically speaking with the image, but I feel like it does work pretty well. Hope you enjoyed this video, everyone. I hope it was somewhat entertaining or informative here. This is just something I thought about doing as a video for an idea for quite a while now, and I'm really glad I did it finally. Thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you.